At the start of the 23-24 NBA season, the Indiana Pacers star guard Tyrese Haliburton was on an absolute tear, with insane offensive production both as an efficient scorer but also generating offense for others by leading the NBA in assists per game. He was shooting it lights out from three for a player that had question marks about his deep shooting coming into the league. His handles had significantly improved, and more importantly, he was impacting, winning, and taking his team from being in the lottery last season to being a surefire playoff team. All signs were pointing to Tyrese Haliburton without question being selected to an All-NBA team. Potentially even first-team All-NBA with how he was playing and the Pacers thriving off of that success. But in early January, Haliburton went down with a grade 1 left hamstring sprain, an injury that normally could take as long as 6 weeks to return to action, and for Haliburton at the time was expected to miss at least 2 weeks when he would be reevaluated to see how he responds to that sprain after some rehab. But somehow, we saw Tyrese Haliburton return to action just 11 days after the initial hamstring injury, well ahead of schedule, and a surprise to most fans when the expectation was that he would be out at a minimum of 2 weeks, if not longer. But the reason for Haliburton's sudden comeback wasn't necessarily because he had been fully healed and was ready to go. No, he chose to try and come back early because the longer he waited, it could potentially cost him $50+ million in incentives the longer he sat out and missed games. Something Haliburton openly admitted to on JJ Redick's podcast, The Old Man and the Three. Unfortunately, though, for Tyrese, it was clear he jumped the gun in coming back too early, as he was still experiencing pain and would ultimately miss the next 5 games after that brief return before fully recovering. Here's the problem, though. This should never have happened to begin with. And if this was last season, you might have seen Tyrese Haliburton take his time to ensure he's fully healthy before returning to the game. But the NBA, in an attempt to curb load management and ensure players aren't sitting out games just because, they implemented a mandatory minimum game requirement to be considered for all in-season awards. A good idea on its surface, but one that has huge ramifications on the future of the league if they continue to live by this new rule. The NBA really screwed this one up, and we're here to talk about it. But first, a quick word from the sponsor of today's video, Game Time. Now, if you've ever had the pleasure of going to a game in person, it's truly one of the best experiences you'll ever have as a fan, but sometimes that experience of buying tickets is not the best. Are you getting a good deal? You're not getting a good deal? Are the tickets legitimate? How do you know you're not being scammed? Well, with Game Time, they take out the guesswork when it comes to buying tickets. You should not have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. I used Game Time for my annual trip to Chase Center to see the Bulls take on the Golden State Warriors and got an incredible deal for seats right behind the Bulls bench. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It really is the best place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsor deals on tickets. With zone deals, you can pick a section where you want to sit, and Game Time will pick the seats for you for big time savings. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So again, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code AND1 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code AND1 for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, I don't think anyone will disagree that the way the league was trending and players continuing to miss games due to load management, missing time without actually being hurt, but trying to reduce the likelihood of players getting hurt, was getting a little out of control. When you go from having more than half of the league playing in all 82 games in the 90s and early 2000s to now where it's a rarity and applauded to the number of players that you can count on your hands who actually play in all 82 games, seeing that trend over time of players consistently missing games, especially star players, is concerning and certainly not a good look for the league and not great for the fan experience who pay a lot of money to come watch the stars on the court. So when the league started implementing these new rules where teams can no longer sit 2 or more stars on their roster unless they have verified and confirmed injuries, and adding in a 65-game minimum requirement to be eligible for season awards, including All-NBA and All-Defensive Team selections, the initial reaction was, hey, this is a good idea. We're getting tired of seeing the stars sitting on the bench all the time and taking various games off throughout the season to limit their minutes. And as a lot of people would say, it's becoming a soft league where players are seemingly out every other week to nurse a minor sprain, especially for us old heads who grew up watching a much more physical game of basketball. But while the league's new rules to ensure guys play when they're healthy was well-intentioned, it greatly missed the mark and ended up becoming more detrimental for the game and their players. And we are now realizing this the closer we get to the end of the season, and players are at risk of coming up short of that 65-game mark. Going back to Tyrese Haliburton, a player who just recently signed a max contract extension with the Pacers to the tune of $206 million, a contract that will go into effect next season. He has an extra incentive to make an All-NBA team this year, which would give his contract an extra 5% kicker by being selected to an All-NBA team during his rookie contract. That figure is estimated to be around $53 million if Tyrese can make an All-NBA team this season, something he knew he was well on his way to achieving prior to that injury. By Haliburton being out for a minimum of 2 weeks, with the potential of it being up to 6 weeks, he would really be cutting it close to meeting that 65-game minimum requirement, and despite his spectacular performance that was All-NBA worthy, would be out the window, as would the $53 million added to his contract. Haliburton admitted that he might have given it another game or two before returning early for that one game to ensure that he was 100%. And the sole reason for deciding to do that was because of the 65-game requirement. Now, while Haliburton is on track to play 65 games, he can only miss 4 games for the remainder of the year in order to be eligible for all season awards. Haliburton will continue to have that in the back of his mind, that even if he's experiencing a little pain that could eventually become more serious, he might just keep it to himself and not say anything to avoid being shut down and missing any additional games. Something that wouldn't have been a consideration last year, and oddly enough, Haliburton is playing some of his worst basketball since coming back from that injury. So bad, in fact, that it's almost a wonder at this point if he'll even be selected to an All-NBA team if he keeps up this level of play. Prior to the All-Star break, Haliburton was averaging 21.8 points per game and 11.7 assists on 49, 40, 85 shooting splits. Truly elite numbers on high efficiency for a guard. But since the All-Star break, he's averaging just 15.8 points per game and 9.6 assists on 42, 23, 86 shooting splits. That's an insane drop in efficiency in such a short period of time, and it makes you wonder, is Haliburton okay? Is this a product of him trying to come back too early from that initial hamstring injury, and we're now seeing the impact of it on the court? Maybe, maybe not. Could just be a really big slump that he's in. Maybe he's coming back down to earth after having a hot start to the first start of the season. But regardless, it's telling when you have a case of a player coming back earlier than expected from an injury and then playing significantly worse since making their early return. A few players of note who are already ineligible to be considered for season awards are Joel Embiid, who is having a historic season before getting injured and was likely the runaway favorite to win MVP, and Donovan Mitchell, who was selected to an All-NBA team last year and putting up even better numbers this year, will not be eligible. Here's the thing, as fans, we all want to see our favorite players play. We want basketball to be played at the highest level of competition, and we want the players to play hard, be physical, and actually care about the game of basketball. But with these rules, you're actually going to have players be more selfish in how they show up on the court. You might have a player think twice about diving on the floor for a loose ball in the middle of a game or taking a charge when you have Giannis coming at you full steam. You might not see a player going all out on both ends of the floor, sacrificing their body to get the win by any means necessary. Because in the back of their mind, they're going to be thinking, is it worth the risk of potentially injuring myself and having that impact my next contract? Do I want to risk even a small injury that sidelines me for a few games and could impact my ability to get the accolades and hardware that could define my legacy? So while the goal is to get the players to play more and play harder, you're actually creating a situation where the players could even play more soft because of the repercussions it could have on their future. And then on the other side, and this is case in point with Tyrese Haliburton, when players do actually get injured and should be sidelined for a longer period of time, they're going to do everything they can to try to get back on the court sooner. And it almost makes you wonder if we'll get to this point where you have players who aren't as deserving of being selected or winning some of these NBA season awards start stacking up all NBA selections over guys who are clearly better than them, but they fall short because they fell short of a couple games of the 65 minimum game requirement. I think about a player like Alex Caruso, naturally because I'm a Bulls fan, who gives it his all when he's on the court, and because he plays so hard, he often gets injured and misses games from time to time. Clearly an all-defensive team player level talent, was selected first team all-defense last season, and while he's on track to play over 65 games this year, he is still at risk to fall short of that mark with just the few games that we have left to play on the season. Do we want to see a situation in which Caruso gets snubbed of an all-defensive team selection to a lesser defender because he only played 63 games? No. At the same time, do we want Caruso to play through injuries, which he already does, and have him risk a more serious injury just so he can meet that minimum requirement? No. Here's the thing. All we want as fans, and I'll say more for me, I won't speak for everyone, even though I'm sure a lot of people feel this way as well, we just want to see the players play, if they're healthy enough to play. If a player is really injured, something they have no control over, don't penalize them for that. What I want is the end of load management. Stars sitting on the bench, fully healthy, but resting games to avoid the risk of a future injury. Nah, that had to end. It's your job. You get paid to do it. If you're healthy enough to do your job, you don't call in sick. The bigger question the NBA should be solving for is why are players more susceptible to injuries more than ever? Yeah, maybe they played through more aches and pains back in the day, but we're seeing a rise in major injuries like never before, and that's a real problem. Why is that happening? I mean, that's a topic for a different day, but implementing an arbitrary number of games players have to play to be eligible for in-season awards, which will inevitably force players to play through injuries or come back sooner than they should from an injury, is not the way to go. You're likely going to be seeing even more injuries as a result of these new rules, which further reduces the product on the actual basketball court. Just get rid of load management or reduce the number of games in a season, which we know they're never going to do, but would probably make the most sense. Anyway, just my thoughts on the matter because it is quite the predicament the league is in, and as much as I want to see the players play more, at the same time, the risk of future injuries and the unfair selection of some of these awards is not also what I want to see. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.